Story 1. My name is Chloe, and I've always prided myself on being a pretty capable solo camper. There's a particular stretch of national forest, a few hours from the city, that I'd frequented for years. It wasn't super remote, but if you knew the lesser-used trails, you could find real solitude. This trip was in late October. The air was crisp, the leaves were a riot of dying color, and I was looking forward to a quiet weekend before winter truly set in. I parked my old Subaru at the small gravel lot for the Oakhaven Springs trail, a loop I knew well. There was only one other vehicle there, a beat-up, dark green pickup truck, the kind with a mismatched camper shell. Didn't think much of it. The first day was bliss. The hike in was invigorating, the air sharp and clean. I found my favorite spot, a little clearing by the Ashworth Creek, tucked away from the main trail. I set up my small tent, made a modest fire, and settled in with a book as dusk bled into the trees. It was probably around 9 p.m. when I first heard it. Not a typical forest sound, not an animal, not the wind. It was a cough, a distinctly human, slightly wet cough, and it sounded close. Too close. My heart gave a little lurch. I doused my headlamp and sat dead still, listening. The creek gurgled, the fire popped softly. Then, silence. I told myself it was another camper, maybe lost, maybe just passing through further down the trail than I thought. But the trail was a good 50 yards away, uphill from me. An hour later I was trying to read in my tent by the dim glow of my lantern when I saw it. A faint, bobbing light through the thin nylon of my tent wall, a headlamp moving slowly, methodically between my tent and the creek. My blood went cold. This wasn't someone on the trail. This was someone in my campsite. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shakier than I intended. "Is anyone there?" The light stopped. For a full, agonizing minute there was no sound but my own ragged breathing. Then, the light flicked off. Just off. I didn't sleep. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves was them. I clutched my pepper spray and a hefty stick I'd been using to poke the fire. The night stretched on, an eternity of imagined footsteps and shadowy figures. Just before dawn, when the sky was a bruised purple, I heard the cough again, this time further away, receding. Then, the distinct sound of a car engine starting, that low rumble of an old truck. It idled for a moment, then faded into the distance. I waited until full daylight, heart hammering, before I dared to unzip my tent. There were footprints in the soft earth near the creek, leading towards where the light had been, then away. Big boot prints. Nothing was taken, nothing disturbed, apart from my peace of mind. I packed up in record time, practically ran back to my car. The green pickup was gone. I drove to the nearest ranger station, my hands still shaking. I told the ranger, a kindly older woman named Sarah, what happened. She listened patiently, took notes. "We've had odd reports," she said, her brow furrowed. "Nothing concrete, usually just a feeling someone gets, but a light in your camp, that's different." She promised to have patrols check the area more frequently. I never went back to Ashworth Creek alone. I still camp, but that specific kind of deep wood solitude feels tainted now. I can't shake the image of that headlamp, methodically sweeping through the darkness, just feet from where I lay. Who was it? What were they looking for? Or were they just looking at me? The not knowing is what gets you. It sits in your gut like a cold stone, a reminder that sometimes the most unsettling things are the ones you can't quite explain, the intentions you can't quite grasp, just a silent, watching presence in the dark. Story 2. My wife Lisa and I decided to take our 7-year-old daughter, Emily, on her first proper camping trip. We chose Silverpine Lake State Park. Popular, well-maintained, seemed safe. We booked a spot online, number 27, described as semi-secluded. It was at the end of a loop, with woods on one side and only one adjacent campsite, number 28. Perfect, we thought. When we pulled up, Site 28 was already occupied by an older couple. They had a small, neat RV. The woman, who introduced herself as Carol, was out arranging plastic flowers in a pot by her RV steps. She had a very bright, fixed smile and unnervingly pale blue eyes. Her husband, Tom, a burly man with a permanent frown, just nodded from his camp chair, cleaning a very large hunting knife. "Oh, hello," Carol chirped, her voice a little too loud, a little too sweet. "You must be the Millers. We saw your name on the reservation list at the check-in." That struck me as odd. Why would they be looking at the list, let alone remembering? Names? Lisa, ever polite, just smiled. "Nice to meet you. I'm Lisa, this is Mark, and our daughter Emily." Carol's gaze latched onto Emily. "Oh, what a precious little thing. Just like our granddaughter Bethany. Isn't she, Tom?" Tom grunted non-committally, still focused on his knife. The first evening was uncomfortable. Carol kept popping over, with unsolicited advice on setting up our tent, on how to build a fire, even on what Emily should be eating. She'd bring over things, a plate of slightly stale cookies. "Bethany just loves these. A single bruised apple, good for little teeth." Each time her eyes would linger on Emily with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Tom mostly stayed put, but I'd catch him watching us, watching Emily, that knife always glinting nearby. That night, I woke up needing to use the restroom. As I walked past Emily's small pup tent, pitched right beside ours, I saw a shadow detach itself from the trees near Site 28. It was Tom, standing stock still, just looking at Emily's tent. When he saw me, he didn't act startled. He just said, his voice a low rumble, "Cold night, just making sure the little one's covered." Then he turned and walked back to his RV. The next day, it escalated. Carol tried to coax Emily over to their RV multiple times. "Come see the pretty doll I have, dear. She looks just like you." Or, "Tom found a little lost puppy, sweetie. Come help us look after it." Each time, Lisa or I would intervene. There was no doll we could see, no sign of a puppy. Carol's smile would falter for a split second, a flash of something cold in her eyes, before it snapped back into place. The climax came that afternoon. Emily was drawing at our picnic table. Lisa and I were organizing our food locker, maybe 10 feet away, our backs turned for just a moment. We heard Emily give a little cry. We spun around. Carol had Emily by the hand and was pulling her, gently but firmly, towards their RV. "We're just going to look at Bethany's old music box, aren't we, darling?" "No!" Emily cried, trying to pull away. I was there in 3 strides. "Carol," I said, my voice tight. "Let go of my daughter." Her smile vanished. For a horrifying instant, her face was a mask of pure predatory hunger. Then, it was gone. "Oh, dear me," she tittered, releasing Emily's hand. "Just trying to be friendly. Children get so bored, don't they?" That night, we barely slept. We decided to leave first thing, in the morning. Around 2 a.m., Lisa nudged me awake, her face pale. "Mark," she whispered. "Listen." From Site 28, we could hear them, not talking, humming. A strange, discordant lullaby, both of them, just loud enough to carry through the canvas of our tent. It went on for what felt like hours. At the first hint of dawn, we practically threw our gear into the car. As we drove out of the loop, they were both standing by the edge of their site. Tom was holding something. It looked like one of Emily's small, brightly colored hair clips. Carol raised a hand and waved, a slow, deliberate motion, her smile wider and more unsettling than ever. We reported them to the park ranger. He looked concerned, said he'd check it out. We called back later that day. The ranger said Site 28 was empty. No trace of Carol and Tom, or their RV. No record of anyone named Carol or Tom, or anyone matching their description, having checked in. It was as if they'd never been there. Emily still sometimes asks about the lady with the pretend puppy. Lisa and I don't talk about Silverpine Lake much. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I can still hear that awful, discordant humming. And I wonder how many other precious little things Carol and Tom have admired over the years. Story 3. I must have been about 9 or 10 when this happened. My family, Mom, Dad, my older sister Sarah, and me, Ben, we used to go camping every summer up in the Cascade foothills. There was this one spot we liked, not an official campground, just a clearing off a logging road by the Sky-Comish River. It felt wild, adventurous. I was a curious kid, always wandering off. Mom's constant refrain was, "Ben, stay where we can see you." Of course, I rarely listened. On the second day of one trip, I decided to explore further upriver than usual. The river made a sharp bend, and beyond it, the trees grew thicker, the undergrowth more tangled. I was scrambling over some mossy rocks when I saw him. He was an old man, gaunt and weathered, with a long, straggly gray beard. He wore faded, patched overalls and was sitting on a log, whittling a piece of wood with a small, sharp knife. He looked up as I approached, his eyes surprisingly bright in his wrinkled face. "Well now, what have we here?" he said, his voice raspy, like dry leaves. "A young explorer?" I was a bit scared, but also intrigued. He didn't seem angry I was there. "Just looking around," I mumbled. "Name's Jed," he said. "Live up yonder." He gestured vaguely into the dense woods behind him. "You lost, boy?" "No. My family's camped just downriver." He nodded slowly. "Good, good. Woods ain't always friendly to little folk on their own." He offered me a piece of dried apple from a pouch. I hesitated, remembering stranger danger. But he had a kindly, grandfatherly look about him right then, and I was hungry. It tasted sweet and smoky. He started talking, telling stories about the river, about animals he'd seen. He showed me his whittling, a small, perfect bird. He said he'd been living out here for more years than there are rings on that big fir over there. The next day, I snuck back. I didn't tell anyone. Jed seemed pleased to see me. He showed me a secret spot where wild raspberries grew and helped me fill my pockets. He asked questions about my family, what my dad did, what my sister liked. Innocent enough, I thought. But there was something in his eyes sometimes, a flicker of something I couldn't name. A watchfulness. He mentioned he had a collection at his cabin. All sorts of interesting things. Shiny rocks, old bottles, toys even. Bet a boy like you would like to see 'em. The toys part pricked my ears. Why would an old man living alone have toys? On the third day, I went back again. This time, Jed was more insistent about the cabin. "It ain't far, just through them trees. Got a warm stove, too. Could make us some tea." It was a chilly morning, and the idea of a warm cabin was tempting. "I don't know," I said, a knot of unease forming in my stomach. "My mom will worry." "She won't know if you're quick," he said, his voice a little too persuasive. He reached out and put a hand on my shoulder. His grip was surprisingly strong, his fingers bony. "Come on, Ben. I got something special to show you. Something just for you." Suddenly, all the warnings, all the vague discomfort I'd felt, coalesced into a sharp spike of fear. His eyes didn't look kindly anymore. They looked hungry. I saw for the first time how isolated we were. I saw the way his shack, just visible, through a break in the trees, looked more like a trap than a home. Small, dark, with no clear windows. I gotta go," I stammered, pulling away. His smile faded. "Now, don't be like that, son. We was just getting friendly." He took a step towards me. I bolted. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, crashing through bushes, stumbling over roots, not daring to look back. I thought I heard him call after me. "No need to run off. I got plenty of time." But maybe it was just the wind. I burst into our campsite, sobbing and gasping for breath. My dad, alarmed, grabbed me. "Ben! What's wrong? What happened?" Between gulps, I told him about Jed. Dad's face went grim. He and Sarah, who was a teenager and thought she was tough, went upriver, Dad carrying the camp axe. Mom held me tight, her face pale. They came back an hour later. Dad said they found the spot where I'd met Jed and a faint trail leading into the woods. They followed it to a dilapidated, filthy shack. It was empty. But inside, Dad said, were strange things. Piles of junk, yes, but also a small collection of children's shoes, all worn, all different sizes, and some crude, disturbing carvings. Jed was gone. We packed up and left that day. We never went back to that spot by the Skycomish. For years I had nightmares about Jed's eyes, his bony fingers. It wasn't until I was much older that I fully understood the kind of danger I'd been in, the innocence that had almost led me into that dark little shack. I still wonder about Jed, about those shoes, and if any other little folk who wandered too far upriver ever made it back to tell their story.